Testing. Hello? Still no sound.
You're not hearing us?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I still don't have any sound. I don't know what the issue is.
We are showing sound here. We're hearing it.
Okay. So can you hear me when I just talk into my computer?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear us now?
Okay. All right. So I'm not sure why that's not happening, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to use the agenda that we worked on and sent today, and I'm just going to kind of work through the agenda. And when you guys have questions, and obviously I'd rather be doing this with with the communication, but if you guys have questions, if you can put them in the group chat, that would be great. Does that make sense? Okay. So the first thing that we talked about is the goal setting presentation, and you guys had mentioned the grit and growth mindset. And I think that you've presented my presentation, that PowerPoint, to the folks at Crossett Brook Middle School. Is that correct? Okay. So one of the things that we start, first of all, that presentation takes the better part of I use 5 class periods, so basically a week. And the first thing we do, just talking about goals, and we talk about the importance of goals, and we just have kids brainstorm different goals they have all over the map, both in school, out of school, whatever extracurricular goals they might have. And then what we do is we take them. So I see that they've been doing a lot of mindset work. So I just show them those short videos of Carol Dweck, and there's a ton of them out there. I want to mention this resource right now. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but VSAC has a PLP resource that's excellent, and they have a series of lessons about growth mindset. And if you haven't seen those, if you go to the PLP pathways website and go to resources. On the resources page, you'll see a VSAC PLP implementation. It's a PDF. That's just one place where you can start to get those mindset videos. But then what we do is when we watch the videos, we have the kids start to write down all of the words and terms and language that we think are going to be important to for that growth mindset. And as we start talking about goals, we have the kids set an initial. We say, okay, what might be a good goal? And we might have chart papers up. We might have a whole range of ways to capture that. We might do that on a Padlet. And all these kids do is we write down all these different goals that they might have. And then we start eliminating, well, what's a good goal and what's not a good goal? And how do you tell what the different goals are? And what would be a good goal? And so we have the kids differentiate. I'll get to the SMART framework in just a second. So we have the kids look at what's a good goal, what's not a good goal, and then what we really start doing is having kids personalize their goals. And I'm going to do a screen share right now, and I'm going to show you how we actually, once we've gone through this conversation, and now we're talking probably 1 or 2 days where we've looked at growth mindset, we've talked about setting goals, we've talked about the idea of what's a good goal, what might not be a good goal. Then we have kids start to actually think about what goals they want to set. And when that's happening, we'll have kids maybe reflect on the idea of goals, and we'll have them do a reflection before they actually set the goals that they're going to set for that first trimester. Okay? So I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm just going to show you the framework that we use. It's very simple, and I'll also just show you where we are in the goal setting process. So I'm going to screen share here. I'm going to go with my entire screen, and let's look at. That's true. Okay, so if we go, this is the Team Summit PLP page, and if this is the home page, and if I go to PLPs, we'll scroll down, and so we've worked on our identity, we've worked on our communities and our relationships. And as I scroll down, you'll see there's this setting goals 2015. So I'm going to click on that. That might actually be the presentation, but let me just click on this right here. So this is the framework that we use for our first trimester. And you can see that we have the kids set an academic goal, we have them set a transferable skill goal, a green team or sustainability goal, and an extracurricular goal. So these are the 4 goals that we start out with. You can also tell that the formatting is a little crazy right now. What kids will do is they'll download a copy of this, and they'll start to complete this framework. This is, I would say, it's a modified SMART goal. We have them, they put the goal right at the top. They identify why that goal is important to them. Then we go back to the relationships piece, and we start looking at what principles and values they're going to depend on to complete that goal. We have the steps to completion, and then the evidence of achievement. And so what we do then is we spend some time, again, this is all part of those 5 days, we spend some time completing this, and then this completed goal matrix will then go on to their PLP. Okay, so that's the goal framework that we use for the first trimester. If you have questions, do you want to pose them now? I'm going to stop talking for a second here.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's an interesting question. We do set the goals for the trimester, and one of the reasons we do that is we try and reflect on the goals regularly throughout the trimester, but we also spend some time at the end of each trimester because kids are getting progress reports, and as we move to the proficiencies, they'll be starting to see if they have goals that are academic, those are sort of benchmark days. The other thing that we do is we set the goals so that by the time they have their first parent conference, they have had the opportunity to work on those goals, to collect some evidence as to whether or not they're completing those goals, and they've had the opportunity to reflect on those. There are some goals, those long-term goals, that they might say to us, well, Mr. Taylor, I'm still working on that goal. I haven't quite finished it yet. It's also going to be my trimester 2 goal. And that's fine. That's fine with us. What's important is that they're going through that process and that they're reflecting on whether or not that was a good goal, and that they're figuring out whether or not they can collect evidence of that, that they've achieved that goal. And recently, just in the last week, just so you know where we are, we're in the process of doing our second goal setting round. And so we had, I think, right after Thanksgiving, our first trimester ended. Kids got their progress reports about a week later, and then using that evidence and using evidence from the classroom, we've taken the kids through the goal setting process again. We don't show them all of the growth and grit material the second time. They're expected to take more independence, but right now they're reflecting on their first trimester goals in a formal way. We have lots of informal reflection, and then they do a formal reflection, and then they've set their second trimester goals, and I'm actually going through that with them right now. The primary tool that we're using for reflection is Blogger. This is something that I got from the Middle Grades Institute, the importance of Blogger, and we're using Blogger all the time. And I'm just going to do a quick screen share. I have permission to show you a kid's blog, and I just want to show you how we're using that. Before I do that, though, would that be useful? Can you just let me know if to see those blogs? Okay, so I'm going to show you what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to show you some examples of goal setting. And then what I'll do is I'll show you the Blogger. So I'm going to screen share again, and here we go.
Thank you. That's what I was gonna
Okay, so okay, so maybe that's let me just see here.
So many tabs overloaded.
And do they choose, or is it they give? You know what I mean?
Okay, so one of the things that I found has happened is that I have to be signed into my other account because our Google Hangouts aren't enabled on our school account. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and sign into that other account and then access it that way. I don't know what that may do to our PLP broadcast here, so I might just wait on that. Let me just talk to some more questions that you have. How do we introduce the transferable skills? Let me cover that, and then what I'll do is I'll go out and try and show you some examples so that if the broadcast terminates, we'll at least have gotten here. So with the transferable skills, what I did with those is this year we made a conscious effort to have at least one goal related directly to the transferable skills. So I actually just made a copy of those transferable skills, and I gave that to the kids, and then we spent more time during that week looking at those skills and picking out the language that they thought was appropriate and that they could use in the setting of their goals. So what we had, what I did is I gave them that copy, and then we had them circle or at least put a star next to all the transferable skills that they think they had actually already accomplished. And then in small groups and in collaboration with their peers, they started to discuss those and to talk about what those might look like. So you have the question from all of those. We do try and have them think about excuse me, all the transferable skills, because then they pick which transferable skill they think would be best for them. And ideally, as we move through the transferable skills, they might pick one transferable skill one trimester and then another transferable skill, and they'll be able to start collecting evidence of those proficiencies. So one of the things that I'm really trying to work on is that they're using the language of communication and self-direction and collaboration. And this is so. These are all great questions, and it's also leading to this complexity of goal setting that I've covered a little bit in the PLP Pathways webinars. And the more that I talk about it, the more complex it gets, because you asked the question about evidence, right? So you can have evidence from a goal that you set, but then the question becomes, can you have evidence where you haven't set that goal? So for example, I just had a kid make an instructional video because he wanted to, and because there were kids in the class who needed that information. So he made this instructional video. We had them put that on the PLP, and then after the fact, you can take the transferable skills and you can start tagging that activity with those transferable skills. So it really, the other question we have to ask ourselves is, who are these goals for? Are these goals for the teacher, so that we can say, oh yeah, look at what my kids are doing? Are they really for the kid, so that the kid can start independently saying, hey, this is what I'm capable of doing? And I think it needs to be a mix. Obviously, we have core standards that the kids need to be able to do. They have to write an argument paper. They have to be able to research and cite sources. Those are sort of goals that I have for them, and they need to demonstrate their proficiencies in those. But then the question becomes, what should the PLP reflect? Does that reflect the goals that I want them to meet, or does that start reflecting the goals that they are really good at or that they want to be better at? And I think it's a mix, and you have to start talking to the kids about that and deciding, okay, here's a goal that you have, and then here's evidence that you have, and it could be, again, related to a goal that they've already set. Or I'm finding that what happens a lot is a kid will be creative spontaneously, or they'll do a project and then they'll go back and look at the transferable skills and they'll say, well, geez, this is a really good example of how I was doing a lot of these different things. And I also have found that in project-based learning, some of these projects will meet a lot of different goals, not only in literacy, but also in science, in the transferable skills. And so some of these pieces require the student to be really thinking deeply about what that demonstrates in their own learning. Okay, and so the question is, do transferable skills encompass the whole thing? Are they more like? So this is also in my own mind as an instructor. I'm feeling that in my mind, transferable skills should be the overarching skill group that we're using in line with the PLP. I just had this discussion last night where we're developing curriculum, and people are looking at curriculum standards, and they're looking at all these proficiencies. And if you can write an argument paper, that's great, right? But the transferable skills and your ability to use that argument to shape policy, to solve a 21st century problem, to me, that's what the PLP is for, right? We want kids who are able to use their skills that they're learning in school to be solving these, the issues that are out there in society. We want them to be active, literate citizens, and the transferable skills are a part of that. And so just this broadcast that we're having today, obviously there were some technical issues, but we problem solve that, right? And we're using technology to collaborate and to help instruction. And this, to me, would be an example. I could put this on my own teaching PLP, and I could say, this is how I'm meeting the standards of trying to be a better teacher, right? And trying to be a better collaborator and colleague. Similarly, you have kids doing the same thing. So I think that this is personal. Some people don't agree with it, but I think that the transferable skills dovetail with the PLP mission quite nicely. And I think that those are the ones where, again, if you have a kid going out and doing a project, or if you have a kid making a presentation, or if you have a kid being innovative, those are going to be the easiest skills to link to that work. Okay, let me just see if you have, yeah. And now let me just look at the I statement here that you had. So, I think those I statements are great. I think they're important. Yeah, and I think that's giving students, you're saying here's a list of goals, traditional goals, and you're having students look at those. And I think that's an effective way of doing it. What I do in my class is I try and have the kids develop those goals, and then the kids can go back and reflect and see, hey, was this a good goal or was this not a good goal? And then I start asking them, well, why? Right? Well, it wasn't a good goal because I had a really hard time tracking it, or I didn't pay attention enough to it. And what I'm really trying to teach them is the goal-setting process. You can have whatever goal you want, but what's important to me is that a kid will be able to go through and set goals independently when they're long gone from my class. And that might be about something they're doing in school, but it might also be about something they're doing outside of school. And when you bring in those goals from outside of school, I think that's going to increase the motivation and engagement. And for me, that's probably my primary concern, is that kids are engaged and are motivated, because when you get a kid like that, then anything's possible. Okay. Do you have other questions?
Do you want to ask that one?
Oh, okay.
Do I do transferable skill work with teachers? Well, I'm experimenting on myself right now. That's the primary. That's the primary motive of this. I'm kind of drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak. And so I just really like the transferable skills. I think they're a pretty good document, that they're going to be easy to connect to a lot of cross-curricular integrated curriculum. And so I think they're effective. Before we go, and the first thing I want to do is I want to apologize that the communication didn't work out. I'm really sorry about that. But I'd be happy to do this again too. I mean, I enjoy this, and I like talking to other teachers. So if there's a time, even tomorrow at the same time, you wanted to meet and try again, we could try and troubleshoot, I'd be happy to do that. And again, any of the resources that we have are available. I'm looking for people to contribute and to collaborate with. So thank you very much for listening. What I'm going to do, I have to go to lunch duty in like 2 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and screen share, and I'm just going to try and zip through a couple of examples. If that doesn't work, it doesn't work, and I'll just end the session. But again, thank you very much, and let me just see if we can screen share and do some of this stuff. Okay.
What's your prediction?
Has Tarrant gobbled him up yet?
They're going to leave him.
He might be offered a position.
Hopefully, I'm still screen sharing.
They rely on pretty heavily for the middle grades institute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is an example of a trimester 2 goal. You'll see this kid. This is obviously an exemplar, unbelievable kid. You can see how they've actually added a 5th goal, and then you can see their transferable skill goal. And I mean, this is really good, and this is obviously what we're looking for. Let me just show you another one. This is the reflection. I just wanted to show you. This is how we're having kids reflect. We did brainstorming, and then I make sure that we always give kids graphic organizers, so that when they're doing the reflection, no matter what their level of writing, hopefully they'll be able to get something accomplished. And then this is another example. This is actually, I'm pretty proud of this kid. This is a really nice writing piece that he does. He's he's working on improving his writing. And I just really thought this was one of his better pieces. You can see he used the graphic organizer. He was able to write about his goals, and then this will go onto his this will go on to his PLP. And now I have permission to share this. Let me just refresh this page. I want to just share this. Let me see here if I can do this. Having a little bit of trouble here. Hold on a second.
The lunchroom's in chaos right now.
Okay, so I'm having trouble with the 2 pages here. Let me just see if I can show you. Just real quick, I wanted to show you. These are we're collecting evidence all the time, and I think that's really important that you and your staff should be doing. So we ask them questions on a regular basis. And what I wanted to do, write down here this question about developing goals and considering growth mindset, self-discipline, and grit have made me a more focused student. It's not exactly where I want it to be, but you can see that when you ask questions and get feedback, kids will tell you how, if you're headed in the right direction. And I just want to mention that I think that's a really important piece when you, when you go and start this presentation, is that that you're collecting evidence all the time, and they're using Google Forms to do that, and then I share it right back with my kids. I say, hey, this is what you're telling me, and so this is what we're doing, and in that way you can start directing directing your class and showing them that they can actually make a difference by voicing their opinions. In terms of the kid you saw, that exemplar, that was an 8th grader, but the writing, that was a 7th grader, and he struggles with writing a little bit, but you can see, if you get kids in a position where they're writing about something they care about, and you give them the form to do it, they can do it, and they can then display that on their PLP, and that shows their progression as a learner, and that's where we're trying to get to. So Jennifer and Life, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or get in touch with me however you want. You can use any of those materials again. It's good seeing you. If I don't see you tomorrow or I don't see you before the break, have a great holiday. I'm off to lunch duty, and we'll see you soon. All right, thanks very much. Take care, guys. Bye.